Hey guys, today we are starting our first project of our drawing class. Before we begin, I want to remind you of two things. One, you can always fast forward, rewind, or pause this video if you need to. The other thing I want to remind you of is that this project is going to take multiple days. It might take 1 week or even 2 weeks to complete. So if you are watching this video because you missed a class or you need to get a quick reminder of something, please remember that you are only probably doing 1 or 2 steps each day. Do not go on and complete the whole project in one day. That's not the point of this project. It's supposed to be a project that takes us multiple days to complete. So now let's talk about our project. Why do you think your name is so important? I want you to think about that question either to yourself or you can even talk to someone about it in your household, maybe a family member or a guardian. When I think of this question, I think of this quote by a man named Ben Hogan, who was a famous golfer. He said, "Your name is the most important thing you own. Don't ever do anything to disgrace or cheapen it." I think about this quote and I think about a few things. It reminds me of always making sure that anytime anyone ever hears my name, they're going to think of the good things about me, or they're going to think about how they can identify me. So, what things make up my identity? And hopefully, those things are positive. Now, speaking of the word identity, what does the word identity mean to you? Think about that question once again to yourself, or you can talk about it with someone in your house. When I think of the word identity, I decided to define it for you. Identity is the qualities, beliefs, personalities, looks, and or expressions that make a person. So let's get a little bit more in tune with what this means. When I think of someone's identity, we think about what they look like, their appearance, what they wear. We also think about the choices that they make. Are they making good choices? Maybe not so great choices. I also think about what kind of hobbies they like to do. Do they like to paint? Do they like to draw? Do they like to play sports? We also can identify people through their family and friends. Also, their interests. What do they like to watch? What do they like to read? What do they like to listen to? Also, identity can be described through someone's values. What do they value as a person? It also can be identified, people can be identified through the work that they do or what they like to work on. Also, their objects or possessions that they actually own. Their beliefs can also define someone's identity and the things that they create. So, all of these things I want you to start to think about because these are the core things that define your identity, define who you are. So, what we are going to be doing today is we are going to be taking our name and creating a name art that defines who we are. We are going to be using paper, pencils, erasers, and also Sharpie markers. I like to use fine tip Sharpie markers. You can use regular tip Sharpie markers. I also would like you to just do this in black and white. So that means just use a black Sharpie marker. When you are looking at my name art, I want you to notice a few things. First off, it says my name, obviously. But second off, you notice that there are a lot of different images that create my name up. These images are what define my identity. And I'm going to go over a few things before we kind of dive in. But for example, my M is made into mountains. I really like to go hiking, so I decided why not draw a mountain range. I also love to listen to music, so I thought the best way to make two S's for the word miss would be to create headphones or earphones. I know they might be a little bit old school because they're not your AirPods or anything like that, but this is how I listen to music. So I want you to start to think about what kinds of things describe your identity. Who are you as a person? What are some things you like? What are some things that you enjoy working on? What are some things that you've created? What beliefs do you have that you can show through images in your name? So our first step, what we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm. This is an easy step, but sometimes people can think, oh, brainstorming is so easy and it's not really necessary. I totally think it's necessary. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a mind map of the things that define you or your favorite things, like your favorite foods, your favorite sports, your favorite music, TV, hobbies, etc. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to take your name, put it in the middle of your paper, just like I did, create a bubble around it, and then you're going to create other bubbles around your name. These things are going to define what you like. So for example, what I did first is I created the words outside, home, traveling, music, food, art. I put them in bubbles. Those weren't a lot of things that I described as myself. I think there's more. But what I decided to do is I took those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, and I then created kind of webs off of them. So if you take a look at the word outside, what do I like outside? Well, I love flowers and I love the sun. So I created the word flowers and the sun next to outside, and I drew a little image next to each of those words. The image can be small, it can be simple, and it can be quick. It does not have to be perfect. Just think of an image that you can define those things with. Let's go down to music. Okay. So a lot of things remind me of music. I like to listen to things on a record player. I do have a few records in my collection at home, so I decided to draw a record player. I also thought of music notes. I'm not a very musical person when it comes to creating music, but I know that you have to read notes, and I think it's amazing that people do that. Headphones. As I said, I listen to music through my headphones a lot of the time when I work, so I thought that was an important part of my identity. We'll go to one more. Let's go to art. As you know, I'm an art teacher. I love to create art, but I also love to teach art. When I'm creating my own art, I usually use a lot of paints and I use pencils first always. So I decided to draw those things. You are going to make your own mind map. And remember, it's all about your identity. So think of a few words that can describe you and what you like. And then off of that, think of a few images that really kind of hone into that exact word. The second step, what you are going to do is you're going to create your name in block letters. So you're going to grab a piece of paper. You can practice creating block letters first, or you can just kind of dive right in and create your name in block letters. You are going to take a piece of paper and sketch your name in block letters. These letters should be large. They should be taking up your whole paper, and they should be spaced out. Remember, when you are drawing your name in block letters, you must draw light until you've got it right. What do I mean by that? I mean that when you're taking your pencil and you're drawing your block letters, you want to make sure you're not digging into your paper and making dark lines. You want to sketch these out. So draw light because it's easier to erase light lines than dark lines. After you do that, you are going to transform your letters into images. So I have a quick video here, but before we watch the video, let's look at this. Ready? Look at each letter in your name and try to imagine each letter turning into something that describes your identity. It might be your favorite food, a sport, a hobby that you enjoy, music that you that you're interested in. These are things that you made in your mind map. So take those images and start to think about how can I transform those images and make them look more like a letter. You're going to use pencil to draw your letters into images, and remember to erase any extra block letter lines. Let's watch this video to see how Miss Parlow creates her block letters. So now you've created your name in block letters. It's time to start to turn your name or your block letters into images that define your identity. When I was thinking about how I define myself, is I define myself as someone who is very artistic. I love to teach art, and I also love to be artistic in different ways. I love to paint. So I thought a perfect way to turn my letter P of Parlow into images that define me would be a paintbrush and a paint palette. So all I'm doing is I'm just sketching on top of my letter P, and I am creating those images on top of the letter, and then I'm beginning to erase any of the block letters that I use. This is very important to make sure that you remember to draw light until you've got it right, because it is a lot easier to erase lighter lines than darker lines. So I'm just adding some extra details. I'm doing basic sketches when I am creating my letters into images that define my identity. They don't have to be perfect because we are going to make sure that we add value and make them a little bit more refined when we are using a Sharpie marker. So I've created my letter P into a paint palette and a paintbrush, and now it's time to create my letter A. So once again, I'm thinking in the art realm because I told you art really defines who I am as a person. So I'm going to be drawing a pencil for one part of my A. And then my next part is going to be a colored pencil because I use colored pencils quite a bit. And then I thought it would be cool to make the middle part of my A into a torn piece of paper that says I love art. Remember, I am just sketching, and you are going to just be sketching your images over your block letters. Sometimes your letters might be a lot bigger than what you anticipated them being, and that's okay. That's why it's important to just draw light until we start to erase those extra lines. So I'm just erasing any extra lines that I may not need. And I like to erase as I'm going because I know that when I start to trace or outline these images with my Sharpie marker, I know exactly what I'm going to be tracing and creating. I'm excited to see your work. I hope you enjoyed this video. All right. So after you started creating your images into, or your letters, I'm sorry, into images, it's time to add value. So you created your block letters, you added an image to every single letter. So every single letter in your name is transformed into an image. It's now time to add value. Now, when we define value, value is the way that we see things and it shows the darkness and the lightness of things. So if you take a look in your room, you can see that shadows are darker, so they have some darker value in them. If you look towards the light, you're going to see lighter values in things as well. So in order to create value, there are a lot of techniques that you can use with Sharpie marker. As I said before, I like to use a fine tip Sharpie marker for this project. If you would like to use a regular tip Sharpie marker, you can. I just think a fine tip Sharpie marker adds a little bit more definition and you can create value a lot easier. So let's take a look. You are going to practice creating value in your sketchbook by using at least one of the techniques that are here: contour hatching, cross hatching, regular hatching, and stippling. I'm going to show you a video on how to do each of those different value techniques. You can watch this. On the next slide, I am going to show you a quick little practice sheet that you can use in your sketchbook to practice creating value before you start to create value onto your name art. Remember, Sharpie marker is permanent, so it is better to create and practice creating value in your sketchbook before applying it onto your paper. Let's watch how I add value. So today we're going to practice all of our different techniques for adding value to our name art. This first technique that I'm doing is actually called contour hatching. In order to contour hatch, what we do is we take our marker and we just create lines that go along with the shape that we are drawing. So as you can see, I am adding value to a circle by just creating these C shapes and following the same shape as the circle or the sphere that I'm drawing. So my lines are going to get a little bit closer together and overlap each other when I want to show more darkness. And then they're going to get a little bit more spread out as I show more light or less darkness. So I am just creating C shapes. I'm doing the same shape over and over, and I'm following the shape of the circle to create my contour hatching. After I do that, I'm going to go to another circle and I'm going to do cross hatching. So essentially, I'm doing that same shape, that same C shape along my circle, but instead of just doing the lines that go as a C shape, I'm actually adding a cross. So I'm going to be making two separate lines now. Instead of just making a C line, I am actually adding lines that go almost horizontal to create more value. Remember, in order to create darker areas, all you need to do is just continue to do your cross hatching over and over in order to make more lines so that it looks a little bit darker. Cross hatching is just making essentially crosses or lines that are crossing one another. So instead of just going up and down or a C shape, you might actually add lines that go across as well. You can add them however you like, but I'm just following the shape of the circle. Now I'm going to go to a third circle and I'm going to do something called just regular hatching. So all I am doing is I'm just creating lines that are horizontal. And remember, you can overlap those lines in order to make darker parts of your drawing. So in order to add more value, I can make my lines closer together, or I can spread them out. I can also put more pressure onto the lines that I want to be, or the values that I want darker, in order to add a variety of value in my artwork. I would say that hatching is probably the easiest. You can just do it on one side of your art, but it's a super easy way to add value. And as I said, the closer your lines are together, the more value you will add. And my last way to add value is stippling. Stippling is quite annoying, to be honest. It takes a while, but I actually enjoy it. When you are stippling, I like to stipple smaller areas. So essentially, I'm just creating dots. My dots could be close together to add more value, or they can be further apart to add less value. It takes a while. Your hand may hurt, so I like to take a lot of breaks, but it does have a really nice effect. So the more dots that you add, the more value you'll have. The less dots you'll add, the more lightness you'll have. So it can look really nice on your name art because your items aren't going to be as large as a circle. They're going to be skinnier. So I do like to add stippling that way as well, adding value. And as you can see, my dots kind of get further and further apart as I want to add lighter parts to my circle. So I'm going to start to add some value onto my P and my A. What I'm going to do is I'm first going to outline my drawing. And remember, you can always erase your pencil marks after you add value. I am going to do a variety of different value drawings here. So I'm going to do cross hatching. I'm going to do regular hatching. I'm going to also do contour hatching and stippling. You are allowed to pick any type of value technique that you would like. You can add multiple value techniques. You could just do one. Let's take a look how I add value to my P, and I hope you enjoy this video. All right, so we watched Miss Parlow as she created value onto her letters. You are going to be doing that for all of your letters, but as I said before, if you would like to practice adding value, it is important to do that before you actually apply the Sharpie marker to your final work. You could try these different techniques in your sketchbook. So you can create a circle, or you can create a cone, or you can create a cube, and you can try to contour hatch or cross hatch or even regular hatch and stipple with your pencil or even a Sharpie marker. So I am so looking forward to your artwork. Remember, email me if you have any questions or concerns. I'm always available for any extra help when you need it. I look forward to seeing everyone's work.